Now, in terms of why tech privacy is important, right? So, what you see on the screen now, there are three interesting things which I want to call out. One, when you look at this image, you look at the image is being scanned. Am I right? So the image is scanned. The image could have been generated by AI, right? And this image may be scanned to do a surveillance, and this image could also be a synthetic data, which is an output, right? There could be many possibilities in terms of what you see on the screen. Am I right? And why tech privacy is so important is that with with the evolution of generative AI, see, AI is not something new, right? But generative AI and the capability got exploded with fueled by the technology advancements, and that led to a great deal of advancements and application of artificial intelligence, right? And that makes the tech privacy even more important. So people traditionally think whenever we speak about data privacy, they speak of data subject rights, they speak about your data breach notification, the laws, the obligations, but there is a strong flavor of tech privacy professionals are required, right? Why? Because the technology is rapidly evolving and they need the governance as it's developing, right? It cannot be done once it is evolved, right? So this is an opportunity for us to be in the space when we are witnessing the with the exponential growth of artificial intelligence and the technologies around us, and it's a better space, or maybe I can see that it's a once in a 10-year opportunity to be in data privacy and AI. The reason is these two domains are going to have a significant requirement, especially the tech privacy part, right? So we're going to discuss all these things one by one. As I told you, there are multiple variants of these certifications. One is CIPP, which is Certified Information Privacy Professional, and there is one for Certified Information Privacy Manager. The difference between these two is privacy professional is about the law, so you understand the law from the crux, right? So it's important that if you want to become a data privacy professional, you need to start with the basics. That basics and the nuances of the law is covered under CIPP, and the best is to go with CIPPE, which is the GDPR. And CIPM is one of the certificate which is equivalent to a CISSP and CISM in information security. So I would definitely recommend these two certification is something for anyone who call me in general. But we are at CIPT course for now, because you are the people who are not in the common pool of talents, who specifically think that I want to be somewhere on the tech side of the spectrum and I want to remain technical. So those are the people who generally aspire for CIPT. And yes, of course, you want to stand out of the crowd, then CIPT is one of the certificate I would recommend, which makes you to more intent towards a privacy architect journey, right? So that is something you want to make it very, very clear in terms of what you want to achieve with this data privacy certification, right? So with the CIPD certificate, you of course gonna be recognized part of a very elite group. Very elite group. The reason is there are so many people who can clear CIPP and CIPM, but very few people can clear CIPD. So one contrary stuff which I can tell you is a lot of people think CIPD is the easiest certification. Actually, out of the three, the toughest certification is CIPT. Okay, trust me on that, because I have been a trainer here for a very long time and I know which certificate is the most difficult for the trainer as well as the candidate, isn't it? So I would say this certification demands respect. At the same time, it's not easy to crack. Okay, I'll be very honest with you during this entire training as well as whichever opportunity we speak. So that is the reason I say you're going to be part of an elite group and you're going to be recognized part of the people who are going to run this amazing space where you are going to try to tame or try to build the required governance part of these artificial intelligence and evolving technologies, right? So people have multiple roles to play in this. And when you come to this exam, you need to have few understanding about this exam. This is a professional certification exam, and you need to write this exam, which has 90 questions. The total time is given as 2.5 hours. Approximately 75 questions carry a weightage. 15 questions are probably we call as psychometric questions, which are doesn't have any marks. So it is very difficult to know the exact percentage of questions that will help you to pass. But in general, if you're scoring 70% consistently, then you are probably ready for the exam. So the exam requires you to pay $550, and you need to also purchase something like $250, or right now it's $295 for the membership. So we offer you a subsidized package, which I would call it out again. Whatever rates you're going to see is for the Indian candidates, because the exam voucher is going to vary from one region to another region. So I'm just going to give you a fictionalized scale of exam. So the exam is scored between 100 to 500. So if you score less than 25, you will not see any marks coming out. Only when you score more than 25 questions correct, so then you will see the score. So that is the reason this exam scaling is between 100 to 500, and you need to reach probably around 50 questions out of 75, right? So that is the reason you think that you might score around 60%, 65%, but it's very difficult. The exact percentage of score for each of the questions you may not be able to figure out. So I generally say 70% is the cutoff which you can be confident about. And in terms of the curriculum, we have 7 different modules. So we are going to discuss about the foundation privacy principles in terms of the different principles that apply for the life cycle, the value sensitive design in terms of the different frameworks, different requirements a privacy architect should be aware of, and the role of technology professionals in privacy. So this is going to be speaking about the role a privacy technologist is going to play across multiple streams. See, as I told you, if you want to bring, if you want to stay on the technology side of it, but you still need to know the most important aspect. For example, if you're developing an application, if you're developing a tool, you need to know what is a privacy notice and what role you play in a privacy notice, correct? So although you may not be working exactly on the governance part of it, but still these are some of the important aspects which you need to be aware of. Of course, there is nothing wrong if you are working on a governance, but I'm trying to say is what exactly you want is to move towards a tech direction. Of course, you need to know a lot of basics, right? And we're going to discuss the third chapter, is one of my favorite, which is about the various types of privacy threats. And these are not the usual names you would have seen most of the times. I have a slide to show you kind of privacy threats that we have been discussing. And module 4, once you have the threats, how you're going to protect them, right? So usually we call a terminology called technical and organizational measures. So that's what we are going to discuss. And the technology solutions are also not the traditional ones. So we're going to see something called privacy enhancing technologies or techniques. So this is something which is quite interesting. Privacy engineering is a topic which in terms of how you bring engineering and privacy together, right? So how do you bring scalable solutions? And that's about privacy engineering. And privacy by design methodology is about, you would have heard a lot about privacy by design and default, but how do you embed this into an SDLC? That's about the module 6. And the last chapter is again a very interesting one. It's about what's happening around us, what's changing, and how, what are the challenges we face in terms of the moving technology, right? In terms of ever changing landscape. But last 1.5 years, 2 years, it's been even more rapidly changing, right? So what are those use cases that we're going to discuss is your module 7. So these 7 modules are the ones which is going to be required from the syllabus perspective, which you need to be aware of. All right. So I'm just showing you the type of privacy risk that you're going to see. For example, whatever you see on the screen are not the traditional type of privacy risk we would have heard in terms of aggregation, secondary use, exclusion, insecurity, identification, and in terms of disclosure, increased accessibility, appropriation. All these are little bit new, and this is something which you need to know if you're going to be part of the tech side. So if you're going to do a technology-based assessment, you're going to do a privacy impact assessment. So you need to be aware of the possible risk, right? So there are different types of privacy risk which definitely you need to be aware of. And so this is just probably just making you curious about the different types of use cases when we discuss, often we are gonna see the examples of facial recognition, which is used for identification and authentication purposes, the risk related to that, and there's gonna be a lot of things which we keep discussing about how do you sort of mitigate this risk with the different privacy enhancing technologies as well. And another topic which we are going to discuss specifically is the different PETs. I'm just trying to show you the different PETs over a period of time, how they evolved. So we have differential privacy and differential identifiability, then slowly moving towards secure multi-party computation, federated learning, homomorphic encryption. We also have the most commonly used pseudonymization techniques are also. So these are the stuff which we'll be discussing during the session. And of course, some of them you might be hearing it for the very first time, but it's important as a privacy professional, especially a tech professional, to be aware of these exact PETs, privacy enhancing techniques and technologies. The reason is your organization might be moving towards this direction, right? So when we say data privacy, a lot of people think only on the GRC side of it, but the tech privacy, as I told you, we are handling huge volume of data, and that huge volume of data needs protection in the entire life cycle, right from the collection to the disposal. So there is a lot of important data that's going to be processed, and it needs protection in the life cycle with the appropriate PETs, right? So these privacy enhancing technologies are not those usual traditional controls. For example, let's think about the federated learning. Most of you would have used the Apple iPhone, correct? So the Apple iPhone, when you're trying to do any sort of analytics or trying to sort of use those specific features, you would have you might have not realized this, but they actually exercise a sort of federated learning. So the data remains within your phone. It only sends non-PII data in terms of getting any sort of feedback from the Apple service. So this is what we call as a federated learning. So these examples are something which many big organizations use, right? Even Google Maps is a very classical case of anonymized data use case, right? So there are many such use cases which you'll probably slowly understand how these big organizations are using these PETs. And it's also important for you to be aware of these aspects when you become a data privacy tech professional. All right. So these are the topics also we are going to discuss in detail. And privacy by design, as I told you, we're going to discuss about applying the privacy by design in SDLC. But what exactly these 7 principles are, right? And how do you apply this? Many times people confuse, like, I understand privacy by design. For example, applying privacy at a very early stage. This is an example everyone can quote. But if you ask them, okay, tell me examples about each of these controls, what exactly it means, what exactly it resonates, or you want to build a checklist in terms of these activities, then you will not see the clarity for the people, right? So it only comes when you know what exactly the requirements are. So to understand privacy by design, you probably need to also understand the data privacy principles in any of the law. The best is to start with GDPR, right? So these places are the ones which probably have a lot of scope, because every organization in the SDLC or part of their products service offerings, they definitely want to embed privacy by design and default, right? Most of the data privacy laws around the world are demanding you to do it, right? It should not be a case where you embed privacy as a retrofit way. It should be something part of the development life cycle, right? So we are going to discuss these aspects as well. And one important thing you would have seen, many people are now trying to balance the wheel with security, privacy, and trust is coming as a very important factor. The reason you would have seen many people are sick of trying to confront the corporates to know, did you use my data for these purposes? Did I give permission for this? Even the big companies are making these flaws, right? There are a lot of data breach related to this. The trust is something which is often broken, where the tech team, the sales and marketing team are not aware of the consequences, right? If you start using the data for secondary reasons without even informing the data subject, thinking that who is going to know about it, but those times are gone, because the powers are tilted to the data subject in the form of data subject rights, and the transparency gets awfully defeated, right? And if at all it comes to the daylight, then this is going to be a very tough time for the organization, right? So balancing these aspects in terms of the business and ensuring your trust, transparency, and also your security of personal data, all these are some of the critical aspects which the organization needs to take care. Right. When we speak about how organization need to take care, there are two important strategies which we will be discussing in detail during the curriculum. There is something called as data oriented strategy, and there is process oriented strategy. Right. So what you see on the screen, it is the technical strategy, or we call it as data oriented privacy strategies. And these strategies are crucial in terms of how do you select the right controls across the different integration points of technology and tools and solutions. Okay, so this is what makes a difference between a common data privacy training as well as with this particular CIPT course. So you're going to be aware of these nuances which many a times people don't go to the depth what we're going to discuss, right? So this is important that you need to know the different techniques which are available for process oriented strategies as well as data oriented strategies. And trust me, each of these topics are at depth. If you even picks one of these sub strategies, it will have n number of use cases and examples of how do you actually implement in the organization, right? Especially I'm saying, if you want to say on the tech side of a technical architect, then I would highly recommend you to be aware of the data oriented strategies. This is something which I would definitely recommend that you need to have it at tip of your finger, because we need to be part of the architecture designs in terms of building those architecture for the organization. So these controls should be embedded at that layer. And also these are the process oriented strategies, quite relatable. Many people can easily pick this up in terms of following the life cycle right from the collection, and which is about the inform, and then it's about giving the control through data subject rights, and in terms of ensuring the policies and procedures are being adhered through the enforcement, and demonstrating whenever you are being challenged by the authorities, and for that you need to do your audit and reporting, right? So similarly, each of these have a very specific purpose, and this is going to be a very important topic that you're going to be understanding from this particular course. So as I told you earlier, so there are multiple types of threats, risk, right? So this is one of the interesting risk which is evolving around us. We would have been a victim of this many a times, but we may not even know what is happening around us. So this is a topic which probably you're being a tech layer of it, which is a very important thing you need to be aware of, which is dark patterns. So dark patterns are basically design patterns which are with a clear objective to trick you and make you negatively impacted by that activity, right? So whatever you see on the screen are some of the commonly used dark patterns. For example, you go and see a website. The website gives you two options. There is a bright green color with a tick mark and a bright red color with a cross, and the language which is kept below saying that I agree to give my data, and I don't agree to give my data with the red color and agree to give the data at green color. Naturally, most of us, okay, if you are not a privacy savvy person, or you are not in a hurry, you will probably go and click the green color, because we are wired that way, right? We feel comfortable as well as safe when we see green color. So this is playing with the human emotions and psychology and trying to use that against us in the design of things, correct? So another very simplistic variation I can tell you is that if you're entering a supermarket, probably you would have seen the way things are arranged in a supermarket. You will see the most essential things are always kept at the end of a supermarket, and they will make you go all the way walking towards the while you're walking towards essential things, you have to cross a lot of temptations of non-essential things, right? So the design can really play a part, but for supermarket we probably don't have anything to control them, but for data privacy definitely we have. And you cannot trick your user in terms of getting the consent. You cannot trick the user from allowing the permission for terms and conditions. You cannot trick them in any way that will have a negative impact on the data subject. So this is again a very very interesting topic personally for me. And this is a topic where in next 2 3 years, which can force many of the existing business practices, right? The design aspects will have a big change, right? So what happens traditionally, people think only the big companies are being watched for these kind of flaws on website, but that is changing big time. The authorities, especially Europe, they have started using some tools to navigate the multiple websites across internet, and they are trying to find your bad practices in terms of cookie management, dark patterns. So this is not anymore something like a manual audit. Someone is gonna look at it. No, it's all been sophisticatedly supported by again the same AI. And this is gonna have a lot of impact on the companies, whether they might get a notice in terms of the dark patterns. So this can also come from data subject complaints as well. Okay. So again, this is a very very interesting topic which you need to be knowing, even not for a data privacy expert. As an individual, you should be aware of these kind of attacks that happens around us. So this is the exam blueprint in terms of minimum and maximum questions. The module 3 and 4 are the most important ones in terms of weightage, but our other modules carry almost a very similar weightage.